Welcome to Forward Progress, powered by the Hammer Betting Network. I am your host, Rob Pizzola, joined as always by my co-host, Clive Bixby. Clive, what's going on?
Hey, man. How are we?
I'm doing okay. I need to get your thoughts. I purposely didn't do this before we went live. I'm drinking a rum and eggnog here, and I need to know what your thoughts on eggnog are because people seem to be very, very polarized on eggnog as a drink.
I am very anti-eggnog, to be completely honest. So that is not anywhere near my thing. You definitely need to add something to it, and rum's probably the best choice that I think you could probably come up with.
Fantastic. Some cinnamon and nutmeg on top. I'm a huge rum and eggnog fan. I love it I would drink it year round if they sold it. Good with Southern Comfort. I mean, I can imagine it's good with Southern Comfort. I can imagine it's good with anything because eggnog is an A+ in my books. A+. Yeah, it's quite polarizing. For everyone watching on YouTube, we're live on the Forward Progress YouTube channel. If you're on Twitter at Forward NFL, we don't see your comments in real time. If you do want to hop over to YouTube, fine. We can get you in on the conversation over the course of the entire show. As always, we're going to recap the week that was. We're going to look ahead to Monday Night Football, and then we will guess where the lines will move for next week's games. Again, if you can't stick around for the full show, it's understandable. We do usually sign off at midnight Eastern. No problem at all. The full episode is available when you wake up tomorrow morning. It's on YouTube, obviously, but also in podcast form on Spotify and on Apple Music. All right, let's get into it. How did the day go for you?
Not bad. Sweated the 1 p.m. games with boogie down picks. Kevin Davis in Hoboken. Headed over to House of Q and caught the 1 o'clocks. 3-2 for me today. Not a bad loss. I don't know what to make of it. I didn't get to see as much of that particular game, but I had Pittsburgh money line, and I had under 37 in that game. Tennessee, I was way wrong on. I -3.5 there. Philly -6.5, which I posted right after our show. So I'm officially 1-0. Which I think qualifies me for the Guinness Book of World Records. And then what else did I have? Cleveland, Cincinnati under. I got a good number early in the week, under 48.5.
Yeah, that one you did mention that last week. I think we talked about that and how we thought that total would go down overall. Our producer, Jason Cooper, has put together a list and kind of reminded me of what we were on last week altogether. But I think we did, honestly, just looking at where the closing numbers were, a really, really good job. The only thing where we were really, really far off on was actually the Sunday Night Football total, where we were kind of coming in around 50.5, 51. And this thing got bet up all the way through 54, closed at 55. Now, a lot of that was, I think, some injury variance that worked against us overall with the return of Mike Williams and their center, Corey Linsley, and then Derwin James being out for the Chargers as well. I think all that had an impact. But for the most part last week, I think we did a pretty good job of getting everything right, or at least most of it right.
Yeah, I think directionally we did a relatively solid job. And totals are even tough too, because we don't know what the weather is at the time either. Like, we're really just going off of our numbers. Like Buffalo Jets game, that went really low. So it was a good week last week. This week's going to be a little bit tougher with some of the injury news that we're going to have to deal with.
For sure. Let's get into a recap of week 14. Before we do, thank you, Free88, for the comment. If you are watching on YouTube, please take 2 seconds, hit the thumbs up button. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm. We do want to grow the channel as much as possible. So if you do enjoy the content and you watch on a weekly basis, hit the thumbs up button, and also consider subscribing to the channel, as you do get notifications whenever we go live and whenever we post content to this Forward Progress YouTube channel. Smashed, hit it. Thank you very much, boys in the chat. Really appreciate that. All right, this week, let's get into it. Something you felt strongly about that was potentially confirmed with today's games.
The Minnesota Vikings are very mid. That was one. That's an easy one. Even Jeff Benson was like all over that, like the minute after the game with the swag chain or whatever it's called from Kirk Cousins. I thought that was hilarious. I mean, similar with the Giants. The Giants are a lower, 5-6 team, and I did think the Eagles were going to absolutely smash them, and they did. Those were really the only two that I felt super, super confident about. How about you?
Yeah, I think both of those for me as well. So I had a position on the Eagles, had a position on the Detroit Lions. And again, those were more so I'm not a believer in the opposing teams, although I am somewhat of a believer in the Lions now as well. We can talk about that a little bit later on. I think the big thing for me was that Tennessee's defensive injuries would eventually catch up to them. And I think today was the day. So I had a pretty sizable play on the Jags today. And just, honestly, if Derrick Henry doesn't fumble in directing to the arms of a Jags defender, I don't know that we end up where we are. It seemed to like completely change. I'm not like a momentum guy, but it really did change that game, and it's like that's the turning point where Tennessee afterwards could not do any right, and Jacksonville could not do any wrong. So I think that was a big one for me because the Titans have done this year where they've survived with a few injuries at a time, but their secondary is a mess now. And you play a team like Jacksonville, who's actually like getting more efficient moving the ball through the air. I was pretty happy to be rewarded with that bet because I felt pretty strongly that the Jags would put up points today.
Yeah, I guess I had one more too, that relatively confident that the 49ers offensive system, I didn't think that was going to be as painful of a loss for them at quarterback as I think the market was showing. He still had to go out and prove it today, which I think he did a pretty good job of. But just a different impact than losing your starting quarterback on a lot of other teams.
All right. So, I mean,
I know you thought differently on that.
That's a great segue to, did anything change your opinion of a team moving forward? Brock Purdy looked good again. And in hindsight, I'm an idiot. Everyone watching Rob Pizzola confirm my regards from Canada. Rob Pizzola is an idiot, confirmed by everyone that I know. I cannot believe I bet the Bucs today. I did think that the drop off was going to be way larger from Jimmy G to Brock Purdy. I still don't know what to make of Brock Purdy. So it's like we've played 2 games, still don't know what he is. But the Bucs, I'm done with the Bucs. Like I cannot place a wager on the Bucs for the remainder of the season. Like you have to give me they're in the territory of teams like the Texans and the Rams, where you have to give me an egregious price to bet them at this point. And it feels weird to say that because they're in a playoff spot, but the Bucs are trash. They are a heaping pile of trash.
It's really bad. And that's a pretty bad futures bet that I had on them earlier in the year. Like, wow, really, really just an awful team. Showing no life either. I mean, none. So they're asking, in the chat, who's going to win the NFC South? It's a great question.
Carolina's live now, right?
I know, which is nuts, just absolutely nuts. And if you think about it, too, Carolina had a couple of coin flip games earlier in the year that didn't really go their way. I'm not saying that they were a good football team at that point, but I mean, a couple of bounces here and there, and it's a little bit different in the NFC South.
I really hate the Saints for blowing that Monday Night Football game to the Bucs because I just do not
change
want
perceptions.
I don't want to see the Bucs in the playoffs for one. So now we're getting my Brady hate on, which I'll get at. Like I can't stand Tom Brady. I never have. Part of it is because I bet against him a lot and he always wins. Also because I'm a huge Peyton Manning stan, and I still think that Peyton Manning's the greatest quarterback that I witnessed in my life. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is going to overtake him at some point soon if he keeps doing the stuff that he did today, which is like on just every single week he does that now at this point. But I'm done with the Bucs. I love by the way, I did notice the Todd, Bowles comment, which instead, I don't like making fun of people's names in general, but I had to have a good laugh at this one because the coaching is horrible. They were down 21-0, and there was a 4th and 1, which the Bucs did not convert. But Brady literally just sent like the field goal team back to the sideline. Like Bulls wanted to kick the field goal, and I was like, "This is the most like they have lost the plot. This coaching staff has lost the plot."
I don't know that they've ever had it. It's the decision making is just so poor. The consistent runs on first down. Fournette needs to go away. That's just my take. I don't think he helps the team. And I think he, for some reason in his perception, enables Todd Bowles in that offense and, Leftwich to just have stupid strategic decision making.
I agree. I actually 100% agree with this comment. You're either a Manning and Marino guy or a Brady and Montana guy. I am a Manning and Marino guy. Yes. Now, granted, I was born in the mid 80s. I did not see a ton of Marino and Montana. I was very young to remember, but I loved Dan Marino growing up, and I love Peyton Manning. So I do like that comment quite a bit. One thing that stood out for me today, the Buffalo Bills offense, like it's not good right now. And it has been this way for quite some time, in my opinion. The best they probably look was that Thanksgiving Day game against Detroit's defense, but also is that output against Detroit's defense anything to write home about? I think they won the game 28-25. The Bills just they don't feel right to me at this moment. Like last year, I felt they were just like a powerhouse team. And now I know they're leading the AFC, but they don't have that same vibe to me. And I'm starting to downgrade them like every single time I import data on a weekly basis. Oh, the Bills fall a little bit. The Bills fall a little bit. The Bills fall a little bit. They probably will fall a little bit again this week, just by virtue of the fact that I thought they were roughly 10.5 points better than the Jets today. They only win by 8. You look at their offense from a yards per play standpoint, 4.3 yards per play on offense. They really won the game because they were +2 in turnover margin.
Yep.
From that, box score metrics exactly equal. So I don't know. Is this just like the Jets not being a great matchup for the Bills, or do we have legitimate cause for concern here?
So I've been slowly downgrading them slightly as well. Not huge, not super significant. I don't know how much the weather had a factor. The two games that I really had in front of me for the most part was the Dallas Texans game and the Giants Eagles. Those were the two that was in front of me. I had the Jets in the periphery. I think part of it could be matchup. I do think the Jets defense is really good. They are very, very solid, and they seem to get better every week. They're not regressing at all, in my opinion, I think, as a defense. So I think it's a combination of all that this week. Who do the Bills have next week? Oh, Miami.
It's the Dolphins, yep.
Yeah, on Saturday. So potential shootout there, depending on what injuries are still left to play. Did Tyreek enter the game? I had to shut it off.
Tyreek came in the game and scored a 60-yard touchdown.
Okay.
So he's okay. Tyreek is fine.
Yeah. So Buffalo, I'll downgrade them a hair this week, but not much more off of that.
Let's stick to one of the games that you said that you had on in front of you today, which I always do with the Dallas Cowboys. Since, for those watching on YouTube, you see the Cowboys symbol behind me. I am a Cowboys fan. What do you do in situations like this when a team that should clearly just blast another team doesn't? Is it worth adjusting Dallas down because of this game, particularly against Houston? Because they were in danger of losing that game. I thought I was very surprised the Texans did not challenge that Chris Moore play at the goal line either late in the game, which was very close. I don't know that it would have been overturned, but ultimately they get stopped on 4th down. But
I love that, by the way. I love that they went for it on 4th and 1. I don't love the play call in particular. However, going for it, it just put a giant smile on my face.
There are some conspiracy theorists out there that believe that they may have intentionally called the bad plays because of their draft stock, and they didn't really want to actually win the game.
Interesting. Yes. I also read this week that NFL is strictly entertainment and can be treated as such. So that's just more, read more books type logic.
Agreed. I don't know that I'm going to do much with Dallas. One thing though, I've noticed as being a Cowboys fan going for, I've noticed this, and it manifested itself today when they don't have the play action game working, or the screen passes and stuff like that. For some reason or another, Dak cannot be a drop back passer anymore. This has never been a problem for him in years past, but now for some reason or another, they turn him into a drop back passer and it's not working. And Patrick brings up a good point in the chat. their defense is starting to suffer major injuries. Like they're already down 2 corners to IR. Trayvon Diggs left the game for periods today as well. Pretty rough secondary, which I think we have to account for moving forwards. And we'll get into the Dallas-Jacksonville game next week. But I think a lot of how that line moves will have to do with how the Cowboys secondary is going into that game, essentially.
Yeah, a lot of these things that we're going to discuss are going to be injury and player dependent.
Anything else that stands out today that's worth going over? I've spoken my piece on Tampa Bay. I hope that team rots in hell, basically, at this point.
What about the Browns, in your opinion? So a second week in a row of a really poor offensive showing with Watson back. And they couldn't get anything done. I mean, their success rate, rushing, passing, all terrible. About 2/3 of their series were started pass, but they just weren't good.
Offense struggled. I think the Bengals are very good overall. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a balance of the offense struggling or not. I did have a bet on the Browns today, which I lost. It was one of my few losers in the early slate. Had a very good early slate today and then a poor late slate, but overall decent day. And there was a play in that game, which I don't even know if it was shown on Red Zone or if anyone would talk about it, but the Bengals had like a 4th and 16 in their own territory, and the Browns roughed the punter. They would have had like great field position, and the Bengals end up getting a first down and going down the field and scoring, which I thought swung the game. I didn't think highly of the Browns offense, but I thought Cleveland's defense held up really well today. Thought they played really well, and this has been like a consistent theme for them against the Bengals for years now, going on Burrow's entire tenure. I don't know if there's anything to that or it's just random or not, but I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm going to do with the Cleveland Browns, because you're right. The offense, like Deshaun Watson, does look like a shell of his former self, but I have to believe that with each passing game, the likelihood of him improving is like, that's the most probable outcome, right?
I maybe just downgrade them a slight tick off of what I had them at this week. They're just a tough team to kind of evaluate, with the rust not seeming to fall off all that quickly.
This was another play in the game. What the fuck was that play where Brissett overthrew the wide receiver? They brought in Brissett on a 4th and 1. Now, it was an actual 4th and 1. It wasn't like one of those 4th and inches quarterback sneak type of plays. It was like 4th and maybe even just a tad longer than 1. But holy shit, like this is like the galaxy brain stuff I'm talking about with coaches, right? Like you have Deshaun Watson now, who's like one of the biggest dual threat quarterbacks of like the modern age. And I get that Brissett's been good in short yardage, but like just go like stick with your quarterback now. Like, and they had a good play drawn up. Brissett overthrew the receiver in the end zone. It just seems like, I don't know. I feel like the Browns offense inevitably has to get back on track, but it's not the same in terms of like periods in Houston. Like the offensive weapons, I would say, at least at receiver, were better than what they're dealing with now in Cleveland. Like Houston had DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, like they had that, you know, Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like this isn't the same weaponry, right?
That's fair. That's also very fair. You just think with the running ability that the Browns have, that should help open up the pass game for them a little bit, and it's just not seeming to happen. Or with whatever the opportunities that Watson has, he's not capitalizing on. One last thing before we get into our look ahead stuff that I think has been confirmed is the middle of the pack in the NFL is just so compressed, and it's really just the Bengals and above. Maybe Dolphins, San Francisco, but everyone from Green Bay down to like Seattle, there's like a 10 to 12 team window that's just like this.
Yep.
That there's no significant difference.
I have some strong opinions on that window. I agree with you. Like the difference is not significant, but I think like
it's quantifiable, but it's not.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you. Okay, before we get into next week's card, Monday Night Football preview, Patriots at Cardinals. I made a bet on this game that I can share. Usually going into Monday Night Football. Actually, I had one last week as well. Was the Saints against the Bucks. So we're going back to back Monday Night Football. Probably won't be a surprise to people. I'll bring up the live odds right now, courtesy of BetStamp. You can check it out, the app out at betstamp.app. Download it on Android or iOS. But basically, market settled in at 1.5 here. Total 43.5. I like the Patriots in this game. I know Arizona's coming off of bye week. I know it's going to be the first time DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown are on the field together at the same time. I think what people are largely dismissing is that the Arizona Cardinals offensive line is an abomination. They have way too many players on IR to be, competitive, in my opinion, against a very good Patriots front seven. A lot of the rest advantage for the Cardinals mitigated by the fact that the Patriots played on Thursday last week as well. So I think this is a little bit short. I think the Cardinals are a little bit overvalued in the marketplace right now.
And I don't think I gave strong enough consideration to the injury situation that you're mentioning. I did make a play Monday morning on total. So I got 44 over, and the market's definitely not agreeing with me. It's been sitting 44, 43.5. So I think I just didn't really give enough consideration to some of that injury news that you're mentioning. And I maybe gave a little bit too much credence to getting another weapon back and having Hollywood Brown and Hopkins back together.
So I actually agree with you. So my total, I made this 44.5. If I hadn't bet the Patriots to the level that I did bet them already, I would probably be adding on the over here personally as well. I think the Patriots offense will move the ball on the Cardinals defense.
I do too.
I think like New England, when Mac Jones sucks, he sucks. And like it stands out. You don't really expect them to move the ball on a defense like Buffalo. But I mean, Thanksgiving, they go into Minnesota. He moves the ball fairly well. Offense looked really explosive indoors. I think it's a very similar situation here where you have a downgrade in defense. Byron Murphy out at corner for Arizona. Not a significant pass rush. Huge coaching mismatch, in my opinion, as well in this game. Well, maybe I'll pump the brakes on that there because I say that a lot, but Belichick is also a shell of his former self.
In terms of his aggression and decision-making, on fourth downs, things like that, for sure. But the Cardinals are more exploitable through the air than I think they are on the ground. And I would like to think that New England takes advantage of that the same way that they did when they played the Vikings, get a little bit more aggressive. Will that happen? I don't know. Those are all little factors that went into what I was thinking about. So that's why they play the games.
Agreed. That's why they play the games. All right, let's get into it. We have a lot of games next week. So we will start with the Thursday night football game, per usual. Then there's 3 Saturday games. And then there are a bunch of Sunday games. No teams have any more bye weeks remaining. So we got the full card. We'll do our best to go over as many as possible. However, it will be inherently challenging in some cases due to the quarterback situations. We had some quarterback injuries today. So we'll talk it through as best as we can. But we may have to pass over some games just because they will be very, very challenging to break them down. So we'll start with a pretty big NFC West matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. This one is taking place in Seattle on Thursday Night Football. And this may be one of the more challenging ones that we do, I think, for the show, Clive, particularly because I personally don't know how the market is going to evaluate Brock Purdy going forwards. And I think if this game were to be played today, probably would have seen San Fran as a very small road favorite, maybe pick them probably small road favorite. Now I think that is impossible. And this number almost certainly has to be at least 3 or higher.
I have 3.5. partially upgrading San Fran and partially downgrading Seattle from where I think they technically belong in the market. I mean, their defense is just, I think, been a little bit more exposed as of late. Geno Smith is playing okay. He's not playing great. So I have it at 3.5, and I think there's a decent shot it goes towards 4, as opposed to going in the other direction, even being on the road. That's my initial thoughts.
I'm kind of with you there. I think 3.5 would be very challenging for me to make a play on either side. So I kind of feel that's the right number. Seattle's kind of going downhill for me. I mean, Pat points it out in the chat. Geno made some terrible decisions today. He did. Looked awful. The defense is looking worse going forwards as well. I think 3.5 is just a good number. Like, that's where I would put it out, and I would just kind of let the market see where it goes. But I don't know that it moves all that much, personally.
No, it's just, I think if it has to go one way, the other thing that makes me not think you have this young quarterback with very little experience on a Thursday night game, 2 on the road. How much time will they really have to prepare for this game? So, I mean, factoring that in, 3.5 maybe might be the right number. But this is one that I'm going to check like as soon as we get off and be like, But there's no number I'd be happy to bet, I don't think, unless it was somehow we got San Francisco -2.5. Then I'd be quick.
Yeah, I think I would bet that pretty quickly too, if I could. Total in this game is also going to be challenging.
So if you have Carolina, Seattle at 44.
I mean, the San Fran defense is a lot better than the Carolina defense. And then the San Fran offense is probably rated more highly than the Carolina offense. So probably, honestly, very similar total. I think we lost Clive. We'll get him back here in a second. But I don't know that it's much different than today's. Really don't know that it's much different than today's, because I mean, the injury to Deebo Samuel could definitely have some sort of impact overall on it as well. That is something to take into account, because he will not be playing next week. But I think that the total is probably 44. And if I had to guess, it probably gets bet to the over as well. We got Clive back.
So did you come up with a number while I was gone?
I think it's going to be the same thing, 44. If I had to guess which way it's going to go, I would guess towards the over.
Okay. I mean, I was thinking 43.5, but I agree with you that it would go over. So, I mean, it's not like we're in totally different universes. So I dropped my pen.
Yeah, that's all right. People still use pens nowadays.
I have to write this stuff down for us week to week, because there's no other quick way of me keeping track of what we're talking about.
It's true. I get it. I use my notepad on my computer a lot, way more than any average human being. I'm in like the 98th percentile notepad users.
I'm not GRPing like my normal day-to-day bets and, my CLV and stuff. Bet stamp still is superior.
Got it. Okay, next game. Saturday. So I'll go rotation number order. It's actually not the first game on the board. It's the 4:30 game, but we'll work them through so that anyone who's looking at a screen can go through in the same capacity. Cleveland Browns at home to the Baltimore Ravens next week. So Ravens were one of the teams with quarterback injury today. Tyler Huntley injured, and then Anthony Brown, who I believe played for Oregon, comes into the game to close it out for the Ravens. I thought that Anthony Brown was pretty trash when he came in, but I don't know if I give him the benefit of the doubt or not. I have really no idea what this is going to be. Like, we're going to assume Anthony Brown is going to be the quarterback, right? Yeah. Or are we going to assume Tyler? What was the Tyler Huntley injury? Was it concussion?
Concussion, head injury.
It's a challenging one.
Especially when you had 3 concussions with quarterbacks this week, I think it's going to be even more heavily scrutinized. I mean, it's just been that year for quarterbacks. I mean, how many QB concussions or head injuries have we had?
It's
And the
almost
2 of them
always,
was graphic,
and it's
obviously.
almost always like they don't clear protocol that week.
Right.
Like, I don't know the percentage, but it seems very high that they don't clear protocol.
So, and Randy in the chat has to be very low likelihood that Lamar goes. I think Harbaugh even said something to this effect that he's expecting at least being out one more week and maybe being back the Christmas week games. So, yeah, we're looking at third string. Today's game seemed like it was all predicated on Dobbins being successful running the ball. I literally have no idea what to make this line.
I just don't even know who the quarterback is going to be, and that makes it inherently challenging. Because like Anthony Brown, I'd have to do my due diligence on. He was undrafted, I'm pretty sure, so it'd be pretty big downgrade, even from a backup in Tyler Huntley. I think Huntley's almost like a touchdown downgrade from Lamar, and then there's going to be like at least a few more points from there.
Yeah, probably another 2 to 3 points, I would say. So what would we have had? I'm trying to think just using regular, just market ratings, like nothing really even all that subjective or altered. Probably what, 3.5 point difference going into this week, power rating ish wise on a neutral.
I think like a Watson Huntley number is somewhere close to 3
Okay.
if they play today. But like I don't know, because it's really, really difficult, right? You had the Browns take a ton of money today on game day. So that affects their closing line. So maybe you're right. Maybe closer to 3.5 because the market was high on the Browns today. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I'll give it to you. So probably, I mean, do we downgrade the Browns from today's performance? Like, is this a game where it's -3 if Huntley starts, and it's like -5.5 if it's I don't even forgot his name. Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. One, I don't know if they've reopened this or not yet. Obviously, I don't, because I haven't looked at any of this stuff. This is just a best guess. Maybe they just open it at 6 and see what happens. Maybe there's quick money that comes in on Cleveland tomorrow morning. I don't know. No idea. That's the best I can come up with.
All right, that's it. We're not spending any more time on this game. I think we've given out the scenarios.
That's a good call.
Yep. All right, the early one on Saturday is the Minnesota Vikings hosting the Indianapolis Colts. Colts coming off of a bye week. This one I think is very interesting.
So I can't downgrade Minnesota that much because the market already did it for me this week.
I think they're going to get downgraded again, though, right? Because it's like now everybody is fraud's confirmed, right? That's what the thought is. Colts coming off of a bye. I think this number is going to be lower than people expect. Like, we might get another situation this week where it's like, how are the Vikings only laying 3.5 to the Colts?
Yeah, I think coming into this week, it probably would have been 4.5, maybe 5.
Maybe a little bit high. Yeah, maybe 4.5, 5. Yeah.
Now, maybe it opens 4 and it gets bet down to 3.5.
Maybe. I will posit an alternate theory.
Okay.
Which is that I think that the Vikings will get market support this week.
Okay.
I think we're at the point now where they almost have to, where it's like
overcorrection.
Yes, the overcorrection happens now, right? Where it's like, I don't know, like, I don't think it could possibly be -3. I honestly don't, because I think the Vikings are like an absolute auto bet, but it's within the realm of possibility that it could be, because I think like we're getting to the point now where everyone is in tune with like, we have to fade the Vikings type of situation. I could potentially see a number that starts off lower than the true number, if you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think at 3.5, I'd probably have to play the Vikings. Not have to, but I would be inclined to. Um, what are the chances that the left tackle comes back this week?
Darisaw is probably close to 50-50. And they were missing their center too, Garrett Bradbury, as well this week.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I open this at 4 and then just see where the money goes from here. If it gets to 4.5, so like, what number would you be excited about taking the Colts at?
6, maybe.
Yeah, so I think 4 makes it a tough decision on bettors.
We see in the chat that Darisaw will be back. So Darisaw will be back this week, practiced all week, kept him out to be safe. So that's like another hidden improvement. I think the Vikings will get bet this week. Maybe I'm out to lunch here. I could the market hates.
There's a bigger too anti-Colt sentiment too, I think, out there.
There's a pretty big anti-Colt sentiment. Cousins primetime game, 1 p.m. Saturday, standalone game or whatever. The narratives will be there. Total in this one.
I'm trying to think of what the Colts' last total ended at. Was it in low 40s?
Yeah, I think so. That was it this
Cowboys? Oh no, so it was Cowboys. It ended up going to 44.5 from 43. I don't think that's a terrible starting point for me to think, considering Dallas's defense is significantly better than Minnesota's, and their offense is probably about the same. Like same difference.
Yep.
I don't know. I think 44.5 is a decent number.
I'm a little bit higher, but not much. I'm thinking like 46.
I don't think it's unreasonable.
I think that I think the Vikings offense gets upgraded with their left tackle back, and their defense is just continuously getting downgraded on a weekly basis because they're horrible. Can't stop anything. Are the Colts going to be the team that does that, takes advantage of a weak secondary and no pass rush? Maybe not. I doubt it, but I'm a little bit higher.
Yeah, I'll go to 44, 45, and that's probably but I do think it gets bet up. At 46, I would, like, if it's at 45 after the show, I will bet it. Put it that way.
Okay. There you go. It's 45 at the end of the show. Clive's going to bet it. He has to now, or else he's not a man of his word if he doesn't.
I am a man of integrity.
The Saturday nighter is Dolphins-Bills. We'll skip that one and potentially get to it when this Sunday night football game is final. The Chargers leading 20-14, 6 minutes, 40 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Sunday, we'll start with the Sunday nighter because it has been flexed to the Sunday nighter, but is top in rotation number order. It's an NFC East matchup. The Giants travel on the road to take on the Washington Commanders. This is a very interesting scheduling situation for Washington, as Clive shows his New York Giants sweater. Very interesting scheduling for the Washington Commanders because they went Giants, bye week, Giants.
Yeah. And on Sunday night, they're going to be at the worst stadium in America.
Mm-hmm. What did that game close 2 weeks ago?
2.5?
It was Washington minus 2.5 on the road.
But a lot of late action, too, if I'm remembering correctly.
It was also like a weird game because I bet the Giants. I won my bet, but I watched the majority of the game and I was like, the Giants are clearly like not like they're the worst of these two teams. Clearly.
Yeah. The game got up to 3 at one point. It kind of settled. So at circuit settled at 2.5. Bookmaker Chris 2.
So, I mean, if we're just applying like transitive principles here, right? Take away 1.5 roughly for home field, add it to Washington. Bye week probably maybe means something, but Washington 5.5, something like that.
Yeah, and I do think the Giants get downgraded too off this week. They got smoked, and justifiably so. It's not something that, I think was particularly surprising. Randy does have a decent point, and I'm not just saying that because of the stadium. Like in terms of their home field, like if we look up, what their HFA is, I really don't know what that would come out to be.
You think the bye week offsets some of that though? Probably.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. So, yeah, 5.5, and maybe even gets bet to 6, which seems nuts considering these two teams and where they started versus where they're at now in terms of, record and perception and all that fun stuff.
So 2 big things for the Giants are whether Leonard Williams or Adoree Jackson will be back. Because if either of them is back, I think there will be market interest in the Giants. Then you have Washington, who basically had like a bunch of players injured in the last game against the Giants, whether that was Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Trey Turner on the offensive line, their center, Tyler Larson. One of their corners was out, Benjamin St-Juste. So like there's a lot of injury stuff at play here. But I think that the Giants would probably get support in the 5.5 range, if that's where we are at.
The chat's saying it's 6, they're going to get bet, which I agree with, by the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, 5.5 is probably where it opens up.
Got it. Total for this one, I can take a stab, but it was 40.5 a couple weeks ago. You probably downgrade the offense for the Giants a little bit more. I'm going to say like 39.5.
Do you give anything back to the Commanders for having the bye week? So to the point where those two things counteract each other. And do you think the game should have played to more points based off of what you saw? I guess it was technically a week ago.
Good questions. There's a lot at play here. There's also this stupid trend about the divisional unders in the second game and stuff like that, which is, I don't think it's affecting market at all, but like it's definitely coming up. I don't know. There's a lot of, I think there's more upside in terms of defenders being back for either team that, and I just think that the Giants offense right now just is continuously getting downgraded. Like it's not the same offense that it was 6 weeks ago. Not even close.
So here's just an interesting trend or something that I haven't seen a lot of, but the quarterbacks that we're seeing success and the offenses that we're having success with scrambling quarterbacks. So Baltimore, Buffalo, Giants, Hurts hasn't been running as much. Fields has been running more later in this season than he did in the beginning of the season.
Yep.
Is this just a league adjustment or something that's happening to the point where, that's something that they're working to take away?
I don't know the answer to that because there's such a small sample on these specific quarterbacks, right? Like even Mahomes, I guess you could throw into that mix a little bit as well. I wouldn't classify him as a running quarterback, but he's one that will use his legs. That's challenging.
Yeah, so that's something maybe I'll look into this week, just out of curiosity to see how kind of EPA and quarterback numbers have changed and trended, compared to the early few weeks.
The big thing for me was the Giants play action numbers have significantly dropped off in the last. Like they're running play action at the same rates, they're just not having the same success. And I think at this point, like the opposing teams are just kind of not falling for it. They're like, all right, like they're going to run a ton of this stuff. Let's just not bite on it. And they really haven't been able to do that. They don't have the skill position players that can separate and get open on just like these standard dropbacks. So it's challenging. Like I'm not interested in laying big numbers with Washington by any stretch of the imagination, but the Giants might just be like officially cooked at this point.
They're kind of devoid of talent at wide receiver, and it's bad.
All right. NFC South, the Saints. So 2 teams coming off their bye week. This is going to be a tough one because we have the Saints at home to the Atlanta Falcons, who will be starting Desmond Ridder at quarterback. I know absolutely nothing about Desmond Ridder or how to value Desmond Ridder. I could have guessed what like the line would have been with Mariota and apply some sort of small downgrade. Is how much of a downgrade could there possibly be from Mariota? I can't imagine much considering.
Would you have Saints 3 probably, like if Mariota played?
Yeah, roughly in that range. I don't know what the appetite will be to bet Desmond Ridder off of a bye week. I don't know how the market will perceive him at all. So I'd probably do something like Saints -4 as my opener. And I would guess that Atlanta just draws money by virtue of the fact that people just don't want to lay Saints 4.
I think that's probably fair. I do think at 3.5, you'd probably get some early Saints money, but it still might come back the way that you're saying. So I would just open it at 4 and see what happens. And I don't know what to do for a total for this game either.
Neither do I. I'm going to guess low 40s. Just that's like my go-to whenever I don't know. And it just like seems right. 41.5 seems right.
So when they lost to the Bucks, what was that? 40.5, 41. Yeah, probably a hair above that.
Patrick says watching Ridder in college, he's not optimistic at all. Thing is, watching Jalen Hurts in college, I was not optimistic at all about his prospects as a pro. Yeah, our eyes deceive us sometimes. I still can't believe Jalen Hurts is the quarterback that he is right now after watching him at Alabama.
So that's my biggest I was wrong on over everything this entire season. Like that is my biggest L is Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. The combination of the two of them together by far.
I've gotten a lot wrong. I was very high on the Eagles, though. That's not one that I got wrong. I did bet Giants under season win total, though. That was I think right now I'm still pushing. Hey, they could lose out.
They could. I think they have one of the top 3 toughest schedules on the way out. So what are we doing for a total? I mean, I'm fine with 42. I think that's probably where I would set it at. And I don't know which way I would even have interest in betting, to be honest.
I would say 41.5. I have no idea which way the market will go on anything to do with this game. 0 degree of confidence. 0.
Perfect.
All right.
You're welcome.
This one, I'm very, very, very interested. Detroit Lions now go out on the road after playing 3 straight home games. They travel to New York to take on the Jets. Mike White got ambulanced to the hospital after the game today after taking a couple devastating shots that left him like rolling around on the ground today. He finished the game. I would imagine he's going to be the starting quarterback for them next week.
This is the only game that I saw a look ahead line by accident, so I'll let you handle this one. But I would think he's going to be active based on the fact that he came back into the game.
There's going to be no team that gets upgraded more in market than Detroit, in my opinion.
How much of that upgrade, too, do you think they've already realized?
Something.
Because I wouldn't have had them. We talked about them last week. I'd have to look for it, but I thought we said probably 1.5, and they still they surpassed that. Again, not huge differences in those numbers. I get that, but have they already realized some of it, and how much more do you upgrade them? Because they're basically a little bit less than a league average team, or right at league average.
For last week, we weren't super specific. We said that the Vikings would open as 1-point favorites, but the Lions would definitely close as favorites.
Right.
So the market moved that way. In this case, I could see the Lions actually opening as favorites on the road. I know it sounds kind of crazy with where we think of these teams, or like where the market put them going into today. Because I think like if played today, honestly, the Jets will probably be like 2.5-point favorites, maybe 2.5-point favorites at home, personally. Like, I think if you asked people going into today, what's the better team, the Jets or the Lions? You would have got 90% Jets going into today. I believe that, at least.
Well, you had the Jets better than Minnesota even last week, right?
Yep.
So that's fair.
But now if you ask that same question to people now, how much of that's going to be different with the Jets losing to the Bills, not really being super competitive, and the Lions double-digit win against the Vikings? I think the Lions might be open as favorites here. I do, however, think that the Jets will take money this week.
If Mike White is okay, in my opinion, the Lions defense is very, what's the right word? Vulnerable to the passing game. So I would not be surprised if that happens, meaning what you're saying, where they open as favorites. I do think the Jets would take some money, especially at home.
It has been spoiled in the chat, so that's okay. By the way, Pat, you're new here, not an issue at all. So we do have the Jets. Well, that's at FanDuel. FanDuel's not going to be reflective of the market anyways, so it's okay. Jets -1 at FanDuel doesn't really mean anything to me. But so here's what I think is going to happen. Lions, small favorites. Maybe pick them or small favorites. As the week progresses, I think the Jets take late money when it's confirmed that Mike White is going to play. Until then, I don't think there's any reason for anyone to go and place a quick early bet on the Jets. If Mike White's playing, I think he gets bet. Part of the narrative, or I don't even think it's a narrative, it's just actually like factually, statistically correct, is going to be the Jared Goff outdoor games, especially winter games, because he's been in a dome for 3 straight weeks now. I think he looks a lot better than he probably is. We'll also have to check how often the Jets run man versus zone, because Goff has pretty extreme splits against those as well. But I don't think the Jets are going to go off as underdogs at home.
I don't either.
Okay. And then total here.
I just took a quick look at the weather and what it's supposed to be. That Saturday, Sunday, Monday cluster. It looks like very low 40s. I don't see much wind or rain in the forecast. So Jets Bills closed at 43.5 in shit weather. Under normal circumstances, I don't know if that would have been more like 45, something like that.
I think, yeah, probably 44.5, something like that, because it goes through 44.
Yeah. I don't have a good feel for this. So, I mean, Detroit's so bad defensively. So Detroit, Minnesota closed at 51.5. Do you remember what Minnesota then Jets closed at? Was it 46 and change?
I don't remember offhand.
I'll check. I think it's going to be a couple ticks off of that. Oh, it closed at 44 that game.
Wow. I'm kind of in like a 48 type of range here, which I'm kind of just balancing what I think the average Jets totals are with the average Lions ones. I do think that the under is more likely to draw money than the over. If we're in like that 47.5, 48 range. You could tell me if I'm out to lunch on that range though.
I was thinking closer to 46.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that I'm right. Like, I don't have a good feel for this at all. So anybody listening to the chat, like, this is a game I'd have to do a pretty solid amount of research on.
Good point by the chat that I failed to mention. Quinnen Williams did leave the game today. Might be out for the Jets. So that could impact the total as well.
And do you think that, fuck.
So like we kind of get 47 is a key number for those who don't know, for those that bet totals. My assessment is that this is probably going to close below 47. I think the under is going to take money this week. I think it's like a correlated Jets and under, which is the Lions have played all these home games. Now they go out on the road, downgrade their offense, basically.
I think that's probably a good way to look at it, and maybe that's why I'm thinking in that 46 range is probably where the number should be, as opposed to what it might open at.
Okay. I'm very much looking forward to that game. I'm very much not looking forward to this game, which is the Houston Texans hosting the Kansas City Chiefs.
Jesus. I mean, do you upgrade Houston, or do you just consider that noise this week? Because I just consider it noise.
I consider it noise as well. I have a very, very good feeling about this game, like in terms of being able to nail where the market is going to be.
And this is at you. All right, well, then I'll let you take a shot. I'm going to write down a number, and let's see if I'm anywhere near what you think.
I think that this market is going to be Kansas City minus 14, total 47.
Okay. You can't see this, but I did write down. Can you see that? Oh, it's reversed. Damn it. I wrote down minus 14.5. That's what I thought it was.
Fair enough. Like, it cannot be south of 14. That's all I'm going to say. This week, Texans were faded in market, so there's still no appetite to bet them. I don't think there's going to be appetite to bet them at any point going forwards unless they put together like back-to-back great performances. So I would say it's more likely that KC gets bet up than it is any money comes in on the Texans. Total at 47. So I was completely wrong last week about the KC Denver total.
Yes, that was when we were both
like completely wrong. Out to luck. I was actually floored that it got bet up to 44.5 today. And I bet some under on game day, which I rarely ever do, and lost miserably.
And by the way, so we were close. If I remember right, we were close-ish to what it opened, and it just steamed from 41.5 all the way to 44.
We were very off on this game altogether. Like in terms of you had it at 43.5.
Oh, is that what I said? Shit. All right, never mind.
And I had 40.5, but I said I was likely, would take over money. I was floored. It was 44.5 floored. So I think that there's like, you really can't make these KC totals too low, or else the market's just going to bet them over. So at minus 14, 47, I'll say Chiefs and over money.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with both on that.
Okay. Eagles go out on the road to Chicago, and they get the Bears off the bye week. Presumably Justin Fields fully healthy for that one.
How much different do you see coming into this week how Chicago and the Giants were perceived? Giants slightly better?
Slightly, yeah. The Bears defense is really bad. And I think like they just can't get to that level because their defense is so bad.
And I think the market, for what it's worth, was probably even a little light on this only being a 7-point game. Yeah. So I would say 7.5 to 8, and Eagles still get money.
Yep. I completely agree with you. Completely. The total is where I think that this is interesting.
So 44.5. Bears defense is terrible. Is this 47.5? Is 47?
Ooh. I was even higher than that personally.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is at 47, I think that's an auto over, right? 47.5, I'm starting to think about it. 47.5, 48, something like that. I don't, and I think I'm underestimating, and at that, it gets over.
This is our biggest difference.
Where I think it's going to close. Eric says 48.5 in the chat, and I do agree with that's where it probably ends up.
So the challenge that I have right now is that this is a Chicago Bears home game in the middle of December. The likelihood of wind is probably high. So I don't want to go out on like a hard stance here, but if the conditions are not bad, I think that this could get bet up into the 50s.
I could see that.
I don't see any scenario in which the Bears defense is going to stop the Eagles offense. Like no scenario, unless it's a win game where the Eagles can't throw. I think the Eagles score at will.
I don't see, I mean, you saw what they did today.
Yeah.
And I don't see why it would be all that much different. So far, it looks tame. 10 to 20 mile an hour winds. It's not awful. 30 degrees.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on. Carolina Panthers return home now. Sam Darnold, he's a thing. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I think we can do this one because I think Kenny Pickett's better than Mitch Trubisky, but I don't think that the market sees a big difference between the two of them.
They probably see maybe a half a point.
Yeah.
Probably not much more than that. Maybe a point.
So we can do this one. I thought the Steelers, I mean, today were kind of hard done by the 3 turnovers. Don't think that they played a poor game.
3 terrible picks. Well, 2 of them were terrible for sure. I think he was 16 for 19 with 3 picks. I think that was his stat line at the 3rd pick.
Oh man, that's I don't think that the final score was reflective of that game altogether. I think those picks, those turnovers definitely changed it. But I don't know, like how much is Carolina going to get upgraded now off the upset win? Like, is Carolina that good? Like, Carolina probably goes from, if this game was played today, I'm pretty sure Carolina would be a home dog. Now I'd be surprised if that's the case.
Yeah, Carolina probably would have been like very slight home dog. Now maybe it's Carolina 1.5.
Okay.
Maybe 2.
Yeah. 2. Yeah. I'm in the same boat. Yeah. I mean, anywhere in the 1.5 to 2.5 ranges, you can send out any, like you can't send out Carolina 3. It's auto Steelers money. You can't send out Steelers favored. It's auto Panthers money. So it's got to be that range. But I do think that Pittsburgh is more likely to get bet than Carolina. Probably. I know how much money the Panthers took today, but I still think that when people review the games today, particularly the Steelers one, there might be no real cause for concern to downgrade them.
Interesting total.
Okay.
Because I don't know. Like I had under 37 in the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game today.
Yep.
I mean, Baltimore's offense is perceived as atrocious going into this too. So is this just low 40s and that's it?
Oh, I think that's too high. I didn't think you were going to say 40s. We're very different on this one too then.
So meanwhile, if I'm saying 40s, I'm like 40.5. I'm not like 42.
I think so. Carolina today had 4.6 yards per play. They had 223 net yards of rushing. They basically ran the ball all over Seattle. This is one of the games that I'm very interested in watching in full tomorrow because from what I saw, I can quickly actually look this up, but from what I saw, Sam Darnold was just checking down all day. Like everything was underneath. Average depth of target is 4.2 yards for Darnold today. So I don't think Darnold is good. I think that Darnold is still a shitty quarterback who might be an upgrade to Baker and PJ Walker, but I have this total at 37.5.
I guess the trouble that I have with that is, and I'm just thinking market perspective, and maybe the difference, if there's a difference, maybe it lies in the middle. Carolina's offense is pretty bad. but it was probably ranked lower than Baltimore's was. But Baltimore's defense is ranked probably 4 to 4.5 points better than Carolina. That's where I'm struggling a little bit.
I don't know if that's necessarily, I agree that's where the market puts them, but I don't know that that's necessarily right. Like I'm higher on the Panthers defense. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Maybe it's a happy medium between our numbers, but I think this is going to be low.
Yeah.
Regardless of Pittsburgh quarterback.
Yeah, this will be interesting. I'm honestly, I don't have a good feel for it. So,
okay. Cowboys hit the road, take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a tough one. I say that a lot now, but I'll say when I think I'm pretty confident in the number. This one's a tough one because I don't know if we're going to downgrade Dallas for today's performance, essentially.
I don't downgrade them at all. I just think that they were at the lower 5% of their range of what happened today. That's just me personally. I didn't see zero of the Jacksonville, Tennessee game, minus some highlights. So I don't even know if that score is indicative of all that much upgrade. But you had money on Jacks today, so maybe you have them higher than the market relatively significantly. Or was it matchup centric?
But it was more matchup related, I think, specifically for today's game, because I think the Jags passing game is pretty strong. They had 368 net yards passing. Trevor Lawrence was not sacked a single time. But what really did them, won them the game, was they had a +4 turnover margin. So how repeatable is that? It's not, for one. But I mean, what's the number if these teams played today? Dallas -6 at Jacksonville?
Yeah, I had them coming in today at about 7.5 to 8 points better on a neutral. So depending on how much you value Jacksonville's home field.
Right. Like if you put up a Dallas 6 now, I think Jacksonville is going to just immediately take money. Personally, I think the perception of the teams has changed from today's game. Not only from and by the way, when I say that, I'm not talking about just recreational bettors, because these are not who's moving the lines. I think that there's cause for concern with Dallas going forwards, especially in the secondary. And I think the Jags, the case earlier in the year was Jacksonville's just getting unlucky. They're losing all these one-score games. It's this and that. And now it's kind of manifesting itself into okay, maybe they were just really unlucky. And this is a buy, team to buy on right now.
I don't know. Maybe I'd say Dallas 5.5.
Where do you think it's more likely to go at 5.5?
I know where I would want it. But where do I think it's going to go is a different story. I kind of agree with you that with what happened with Houston today, that's going to lead to a perception, as well as with Jacksonville beating Tennessee, which is again a very mid team. But I wouldn't be shocked if the earlier money comes in on Jacksonville, but then Dallas gets hammered on Sunday.
I could see this being a two-way game.
Yeah. So I'll say Dallas 5.5 with a super. This is probably the second highest total of the week. I have to look.
Okay. I'm interested to hear your specific number.
Well, I'm going off the cuff here on this. Miami Buffalo was the one that I thought would be highest of the week.
Okay.
This one.
Philly Chicago is the second highest. Maybe the highest for me.
So what did today's close? I mean, Houston, Dallas closed at 44. Last week, Dallas and Jacksonville's been having high totals too, right? For the most part.
Yes. Although today was pretty low, that is all to do with Tennessee, right?
Tennessee. Maybe I'm overestimating this a little bit. At first, I was thinking 49.5, but that's too high.
So here's what I think's going to. I'll cut you off because I have a high degree of confidence in this one as well.
Cool.
I think that just based off of where the totals have closed previously in games with these teams, that the market, I know what my number is on this game, or like just a raw ratings number. I haven't simulated it out. Don't know how like the matchups are going to, but you're going to get, I think, a total that looks lower than we think it's supposed to be. Do you know what I'm getting at? Like, yeah. I personally think that this total should be 47 or higher. Mm-hmm. Me personally. I do not believe that that's going to be the market number on the game.
So do you think it opens at like 45 and a half?
Yes.
45?
Okay. Yes. And I think it will get bet up because typically the numbers tend to move towards what my number is. But I think that, and especially you have the Cowboys secondary injuries. On top of that, like Jacksonville couldn't stop the run today, at least in the first half. Second half, they did a great job. So I got to take that back, actually. But
so I guess this is probably why, whether this is right or wrong, I think if you think Jacksonville is going to get bet in the market, it's because you think they're going to be able to score against a strong Dallas defense, and then that's going to drive the total. I think those two will be correlated.
Yep.
I feel like anything under 47, I would probably auto bet. I'd have to think about it, but this is what it feels like. Anyway.
I agree.
Got to refill that rum and eggnog.
It's toast. Finish the carton, man. I'm really depressed. Gonna have to go run out and buy some more tomorrow. Sorry, bacon boy. It's toast. Completely done. Empty. All right. Cardinals, Broncos, skipping over. We haven't seen the Cardinals play yet. Broncos, we have no idea with Russell Wilson. I assume he'll be out for next week. Okay, this one's interesting. Bengals go on the road to take on the GOAT, Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Little needling in there. Needling TB.
This has to be an inflated number, right? Like there's no market appetite to bet Tampa anymore, is there?
I know. I mean, I couldn't get myself to pull the trigger this week, but I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't really inclined to bet San Francisco at -3.
I fucked up. I can't be reminded of this game again. I fucked up. That's all. There's all there is to it.
So this is a road game for Cincy. I mean, are the Browns? How much more are the Browns perceived as better than Tampa Bay currently coming into this week?
Here's the thing. The market has gotten the Bucs wrong all year.
Sure.
They've covered one of their last 12 games. Okay. They are continuously, and I fall victim of this as well this week. So I can't just say, now this was more of a I'm lower than San Fran than too high on Tampa. So like, let me clear that up. I've been on like the fade the Tampa train for a while. I bet against them a lot. The market does not view them in the same lens that I do. Period. Will they ever? I don't know.
Are you ready, or is the market ready? Because you're ready. I could hear it in your voice. You're ready. They're roughly about a point better than average, like in most market ratings. Are you ready to knock them down to the -1 that they should be?
I've had them below average for a while now.
So do you think the market's ready to see that, though? Like, is this week enough where they just got smoked 35-7 by, the overall last pick in the draft?
Right.
I don't know what injury issues that they have today.
They have a bunch in the secondary. They lost a couple corners today. Vita Vea, they're one of their nose tackle, left the game.
He was gone early.
More defensive injuries.
Packers or Bucks a better team?
I'm down on both these teams. I'm down on both. I don't know. I don't even want to think about this question. I'm sorry, Eric. I can't even think about that. I'm going to throw up the eggnog that I just had if I have to think about the Packers and Bucks.
What number do you need to bet Tampa Bay at home?
6.
Okay.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe 6.5. I'm not even joking.
I mean, I'm not surprised if this line's 4.5, like opening
It
with the
almost
way.
has to be. It almost has to be at this point. Unless because the Bengals got faded today on game day, that like the perception, like the market rating on them is lower. I don't know. It sounds insane, right? Because like the market rating going into today's game on these two teams would have definitely 100% been Bengals by less than a field goal.
Yes, 2.5
So
ish.
there's going to be a huge correction, right?
Every once in a while, I see something in the chat. I just have to smile, and it's not because I ate an edible. I opened the game 4.5, and Bengals still might get money.
I don't know who's going to get. Here's the thing: I think you open the game 4.5. I believe that the Bucks get money.
Ugh.
I'm not saying that that's right, but I believe that that's. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Oh my god! Please, I would give one, if not both, testicles for a Cincinnati -3.
Rob's nickname for
total.
So I mean, like I thought this Cincy Cleveland number was not. I thought that would even drop lower, and I guess it did at one point this week. I mean, how do you have any faith in Tampa Bay putting up points at all?
I don't know. I mean, there's someone who's going to talk themselves into like the opening play of the game today. Oh, I think we lost Clive again.
Oh, not again, really?
No, we're good. We're good. We got you. You were just really still there. It was very like mime-like.
Yeah. I'm thinking. I don't know, 41, like.
Yep. And I'm sort of in the same spot as you. What I was going to say is some people are going to galaxy brain themselves into the Bucks game being completely different today. If the first play, the Bucks sent a blitz on Brock Purdy and Keanu Neal had like a free run to the quarterback and just drilled them in the head and like got a roughing the passer penalty on a free sack. Like would have been 2nd and 20. Instead, it was a free 15 yards and just like someone will talk themselves into like, oh, if that play went differently, the whole game would have went differently, this and that. Yeah, I'm with you in the total 41. That seems about right to me.
Okay,
seems about right.
It's painful to evaluate the Bucks.
How are there
Clive
2
moving like tortellini?
Are there? What I'm looking at the times for next week's game on the odd screen right now, and there's 2 games listed at 8:20. That can't be right. Did the Patriots Raiders get flexed out of 8:20? Probably.
Yes, it did.
Okay, for Giants Commanders. Okay, so this one got flexed out. Patriots Raiders, we're skipping it. Patriots play tomorrow night. I don't think there's much to talk about here for now. Anyways, we won't be able to until the Patriots.
2 remarkably league average teams going into this week.
Yeah. Probably see like honestly the line tomorrow is what we said. Patriots 1.5 on the road. Probably Raiders are slightly better than the Cardinals. Probably pick 'em game, something like that.
Yeah,
that's what I guess. Okay, Monday Night Football. We got the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Rams. Another week for Baker Mayfield to get acclimated to that offense.
I mean, Hall of Fame quarterback Baker Mayfield. I mean, if you get on 3 rosters in 1 year as a number 1 overall pick, I mean, that says something. That's pretty big stuff. God, another game.
Is Aaron Donald still going to be out for the Rams? Because that's kind of big. I don't know.
What do you do with him? Like, do you just sit him down? Like, at this point, like, there's no
Well, the problem is you don't have your own draft pick anyway, so it's not
I
like you
get
can.
that.
Yeah.
But even still, like, do you hurt yourself even more just to, spite somebody else? I could see some logic behind it, but
So here's another scenario where somebody asked me where do I have the Packers relative to the Bucks? Here's where I have the Packers overrated by market. That's where I have the Packers. Okay. Some of this rest advantage that they have is going to be mitigated by the Rams having played Thursday as well. So Rams are going to be on extra rest. Rams played like garbage. That's totally expected with a quarterback that they brought in 2 days before their game, and they still ended up somehow winning that game. The Packers are going to be big favorites here.
Yeah.
Because the market is going to make them big favorites here. I don't agree with it, but I'm telling you what it's going to happen. And this number is going to be north of a touchdown.
Yeah, I was thinking 9.5. Like, I think that's going to be the perception, and I think that's where it is. I think that's too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Green Bay gets more, gets money. I think if Aaron Donald comes back, obviously that's helpful. But I think that's where this game opens, which feels terrible.
I think the Rams, will take money at those prices. And this will ultimately settle down in like the 7.5 range. But
Okay.
I've been wrong on so many Packers games in terms of where the market will head that I don't know.
It seems like these Hall of Fame quarterbacks that are towards the end of their career, it just takes the market too long to adjust.
Yeah, because there's this built-in prior, right, on them.
Yeah, I mean, similar stuff I think happened with Drew Brees too, like where he was overvalued. We saw it with Matt Ryan, like in every future.
We saw it for the first half of the year with Russell Wilson. Like,
So,
I think you're right. I really, that is the tendency, is just like that they're just going to turn it around and figure it out.
The only upside that I've seen from Green Bay the last few weeks is how they're incorporating Christian Watson. That's it.
How low is this total?
What did Thursday night's game close at? 42?
Yeah, it got bet down from like 44 to 42.
40.5.
Okay.
And it might go under.
Yep.
I think if it's going to get money either way, it's going to get under. This is whether or not
I'm in the same range. I'm at 40, so we're pretty close on this one. We're pretty damn close. Okay, quickly, just want to go back to the Saturday game that we glossed over, which was Bills hosting the Dolphins. Dolphins lose 23-17. Ugly game for them. 4.5 yards per play, 127 net yards passing, 3 for 11 on third down. Not a good day for Emmanuel Acho and his Tua Tagovailoa praise.
Oh, God.
Herbert no longer a social media quarterback, as he's been called. Okay.
So how much are you downgrading the Dolphins off of today?
They have to be downgraded. They lost by 6 as a 3. Yeah, it just was 3-point favorite. Not
but did
crazy.
You think that was right? Because I personally thought that. Well, like
I made the game 3. I was pretty much on market with where the game closed.
Okay.
I thought the total was just a tad too high, but like nothing that I could bet back down.
So if I knock the Dolphins down to say like 2.5 from what I had them about 3 points over league average. And there's obviously not a strong Chargers home field advantage.
No.
So I'm not really knocking down the Bills that much, maybe a hair.
Can you make it a full touchdown, or is that too much? That's my question.
Yeah, I was going to say 6.5. You might see some two-way action to the point where it gets to maybe -7 plus 100, but I think it'll come back. Like I have it at 6.5.
I'm in the same spot. I think the Dolphins are more likely to take money, honestly. It's a tough scheduling spot for them, as some people have pointed out in the chat. Tyreek did not, finish the game strong. He was hobbling around. But I don't see the appetite to bet the Bills to cover by margin right now. Really, I don't.
No, I'm doing a quick weather check.
Honestly, it might just close at that number. It might just be 6.5 is where it ends up.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. That's a tough. I don't feel good about either side at all at those numbers or at that number. So Sunday, it looks like the 3-day window of Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and even before that, rain, snow, 32 and freezing, high winds. So, I mean, you'll get a total higher than you got today at 43.5. I just don't know how much more it's going to be.
I think probably like a 46.5 is my guess. Honestly, as I say that out loud, decent conditions, I would want that over probably.
Yeah.
47 maybe.
Well, do you think knowing that the conditions are likely to be shit, does that change what you're opening?
Yeah, I think you might. Well, I mean, not really, because you're not going to be. You're limiting your liability, right, with your opening number just by the limits you're posting on it, anyways. Kind of like you're just going to let the market dictate it for you. So I don't think you assume bad weather. You probably just assume December, like average weather, cold, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, I say 47, and it probably gets bet down. What did you say? I didn't hear you. Sorry.
44. I retract my 46.5, and I also say 47.
Oh, okay.
So we're very close. That's it. That's the games for next week here on Forward Progress. If you stuck around till the very end, please hit that thumbs up. It's very important to us. Helps with the YouTube algorithm. We can continue producing content just like this. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, we'd really appreciate that as well. We have a ton of good content over the course of the week. Band of Betters, Back to the Futures, Annex Square, Drive to Survivor, Teaser Time, Pizza Buffet, Same Game Parlay, Hammer Anytime, and of course, our flagship show here, Forward Progress. So consider hitting that subscribe button. You'll get notified as soon as good content goes out. And again, I'm back tomorrow over on Hammer HQ, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Myself, Dr. Eric Eager, breaking down the Patriots and the Cardinals. Appreciate everyone who stuck around to the very end. If you're listening on replay, thank you for supporting. If you're on Spotify or Apple Music, please rate and review 5 stars. Every single review goes a long way. For myself, for my co-host Clive Bixby, for our producer Jason Cooper, this has been Forward Progress. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks, everyone.